Yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. The Freedom Convoy trials continue to move along, and we spoke last week about certain conditions that were lifted in order to allow Tamara Leach access to be around Chris Barber without the presence of lawyers. Now, I've stated in that video that not all of Tamara's conditions were lifted, of course, because the government has dragged this court case on that was supposed to only be 16 days for roughly 16 months as we continue to trug along in the battle for freedom. I wanted to give another update because another Freedom Convoy protester that is very well known is making their appearances in court this week. And despite people's opinions, whether you like him or hate him, Pat King is set to take trial for his involvement in the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. Now, Pat King was jailed for much and significantly longer than Tamara Leach. Pat King, of course, had a bullseye on his back from day one since he showed up or announced that he was coming out to the Freedom Convoy. In fact, if you remember the news reports as the trucks were rolling into Ottawa, even as far west as Alberta, the news outlets like CBC, Global, CTV, all the government shilled prostitutes were out in full force to essentially use Pat King as the martyr of the Freedom Convoy to say he's a racist, he's got unacceptable views, he's part of a small fringe minority. The list goes on. They talk a lot about his podcast. And while I will state that I've heard Pat King speak many, many times and can say that much like myself, there are times when he gets passionate about what he's talking about. He gets on a roll or a rant with what he's saying, and sometimes things tend to come out as a result of that passion that are maybe seen as off-putting or extreme. Now, I've spoken to many people who know Pat King who have said that this man is a very kind and gentle man, that he's caring, that he looks out for people's best interests. And of course, I know a lot of people sent him how the Prime Minister stole freedom while he was in prison. I've joined live streams with Shadow Davis with Pat King. I've never had any issues with the man. He seems just fine to me. In fact, I watched a lot of the Freedom Convoy coverage throughout the occupation, not the occupation, we'll say the protest, the demonstration in Ottawa. And Pat was very much active on those live streams, trying to calm down those that were starting to get heated, organizing, making sure people followed the rules, followed the laws. Even when the police came to confiscate gas from the one of the, I can't remember the name of the area that everybody was staying, but when the police came to take the fuel away from that depot, essentially Pat was there saying, just let them do their jobs, let them get it on. Like, yeah, he's a little aggressive, but he stood up for everybody's rights. He deserves fair trial just like everybody else. Of course, even Tamara Leach coming out to support him. Unfortunately, I'm still under conditions, stating that I'm not allowed in Ottawa. It was red zone. But I have hoped our trial would be over so I could attend Pat's trial to show support, even though we are not permitted to communicate, praying for him and a positive outcome. So again, people say, well, all these guys butted heads during the Freedom Convoy. You still have people like Tamara Leach understanding the oppression from government and the boot on your neck to not be able to speak, to not be able to work, to not be able to have a bank account, to not be able to make a living, to not be on social media. She knows firsthand what this feels like and, of course, supports freedom and Pat King to a fair trial. Now, of course, we see here that the criminal trial of Freedom Convoy organizer Pat King begins with a not guilty plea. And, of course, there's guys like Daisy Media, Jason Levine are all down at the courtroom covering what's going on. So, again, if you're on Twitter or X, I guess as it's called nowadays, follow Daisy Media, follow Jason Levine. You'll always get your updates there if you want to know, aside from mainstream media. Of course, we've got even outlets like the Cochrane Eagle from Alberta reporting that the criminal trial begins with a not guilty plea. As this criminal trial got underway, Freedom Convoy organizer, I love how they pin him as an organizer, he joined the convoy a quarter of the way through. Pat King pleaded not guilty for the first of 9 charges related against a major protest that paralyzed downtown Ottawa. I guess this is going to give you a narrative as to where this article is going to head. As the criminal trial got underway, Freedom Convoy organizer Pat King pleaded not guilty to a list of 9 charges. King was involved in a convoy that saw hundreds of big rig trucks, other vehicles roll into Ottawa 2 years ago to protest public health measures. He offered his plea in court wearing a black suit with a dozen supporters in the benches behind him. The Crown says King presented himself as an outspoken leader throughout the demonstration and documented his experience with frequent live streams on social media, which are expected to be entered as evidence. And again, this is just merely one side of the spectrum portraying him as a villain based on his opinions. We have the right to speech in Canada. We have a Charter of Rights. Pat did nothing threatening. He did nothing aggressive in any of his live streams. But the problem when it comes to prosecution, the same as it did with Tamara and with Chris Barber, is that you're going to see them try to twist words to fit a narrative. This could be very difficult for Pat King. He's charged with mischief, counseling others to commit mischief, disobeying a court order, obstructing police, other offenses related to his role in the demonstration, which ultimately prompted a large police operation. The sound of air horns blared through the courtroom as the Crown began its case with an 11-minute compilation videos of scenes from the national capital during the protest, showing streets blocked by trucks and crowds shouting freedom and "We're not leaving." Of course, none of that had anything to do with Pat King. Again, he joined the convoy, I believe, as they passed through Calgary and became more uh, prevalent in the convoy by about the time they hit Manitoba on their way out. So they'd already gone through 3 provinces of the country, building their numbers when Pat King kind of officially joined them, thrown in jail, used again, just like Tamara, just like Chris, anybody else who was arrested during the convoy, made as a martyr for the cause. They jumped on a grenade because these are the people the media found it easiest to target. The government found it easiest to target them. I sincerely hope and pray that Pat King has a fair trial. We know that that's not going to come. I'm hopeful that he has a speedy trial. He has the right to that. He has the right to get on with his life. I don't know if people are aware of this, but the last time I heard about Pat King, he still cannot possess a bank account. He was fundraising around Christmas when I'd seen him on Shadow Davis in a live stream that we did close to the new year, where he was still talking about fundraising in order to pay for legal bills, in order to pay for his ability to continue living because he doesn't have a bank account. His assets are still frozen. All for what? For going to Ottawa to tell the government we need to be listened to? There was no aggression during this protest. There was no violence. There were planted flags and different government tactics put in place to try to decriminalize, or not decriminalize, discredit the Freedom Convoy. This is the end result. I will continue to cover Pat King for as long as he's in trial. I will keep you guys updated as to where this trial goes. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think is going to happen to Pat? Do you think that this is going to, again, we're talking about mischief charges, um, obstruction of police. These are minor charges, but your guesses are as good as mine. If a judge finds him guilty, as to what the punishment is going to be. Let me know your thoughts down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that button, you hit your bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up or a comment on the way out. It helps us in the algorithm, especially when the government doesn't want videos like this getting out there. It helps push it forward and tell people on YouTube, hey, this is worth watching and checking out. Also, join us live Fridays here on the channel at 8 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific for Friday Night Fringe, where we go over everything that's happened in the past week, everything coming up in the week ahead, except for this Friday on the May long weekend because I will be out of town. I'm sure most of you will be out of town as well. So we will just commence next Friday here on the channel. It'll be a great stream. It'll be a good catch-up stream. I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say in those videos, and it's definitely the highlight of my week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.